Hello, ladies and gentlemen, as promised, I'm going to be giving you guys my final Euro 2024 qualifier prediction. Now, right when the groups were released, I did an early one with Yugoslavia. Unfortunately, he's not going to be able to join today. He obviously had some very interesting takes last time. I guess I did as well. But that video was uploaded in October, so of course a lot's changed. We've seen a whole World Cup in the meantime. Obviously not all these teams play in the World Cup, but still, decent amounts changed with some of the players, the form, the squads, the managers. Lots of new managers have been appointed, so it's worth discussing with you everything right before the qualifiers begin. But as always, guys, this is an open discussion and just my opinion, so let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Drop an early like. Let's try to hit 3,000 likes on this video. Might be ambitious, but without any further ado, let's get into it. Starting off with Group A. You've got Spain, Scotland, Norway, Georgia, and Cyprus. This is a fascinating group. You've got one European giant, obviously, who didn't perform as planned in the World Cup. They got knocked down the round of 16s to Morocco. That resulted in Luis Enrique getting sacked and Luis de la Fuente being appointed. Now, Luis de la Fuente, for most of his career, was in charge of the youth system, so he's already had quite the experience with Spain, just not at the senior level. It's going to be very interesting to see what he's capable of. He won the U19 Euros in 2015, he won the U21 Euros in 2019, and he won the Silver Olympics medal in 2020 for the Spain U23 side. I don't think I need to go too in-depth with this squad. Most of us know it really well already. Maybe a few veterans not at their peak anymore, but still, what an incredible side. I do think they'll grab first place in this group. I would be surprised if they don't. We'll see if any of these other nations surprise, though, as they definitely can. I definitely see Spain getting halted at least once or twice in this group, but doing the job at the end, qualifying for the Euros immediately. I think they got it. But let's move on to Scotland, the only other nation in this group that qualified for Euro 2020 last time around. They handled the pressure well to qualify for that tournament, beating Serbia in the playoffs on penalties. This squad has a ridiculous amount of fullback options, as most of us know, Andy Robertson being the most famous out of the bunch, but there's still Tierney on Arsenal, Nathan Peterson on Everton, Calvin Ramsey on Liverpool. Unfortunately, the two of them are injured, but they're brilliant youngsters that can definitely make a difference later on in the qualifiers. One of my concerns for the squad, though, is how the attack will perform. I know Che Adams does have his brilliant moments, but I don't know if he's necessarily the best striker to rely on. In the last World Cup qualifier campaign, they did a pretty good job making it to the playoff round, but losing that first round in the playoffs to Ukraine. Seemed to get revenge on Ukraine later, though, in the Nations League, where they topped their group. So I'll say their manager, Steve Clark, seems to get the best out of this side. Overall, they organize well as a unit, and they're an impressive bunch. But can they handle the pressure against the other teams? I'm telling you, this is a tough group, man. Scotland already did qualify for the playoff spots, so even if they do butcher this group, they still have a chance to qualify at the end due to the knockouts, which is what they did last time. Georgia are also in the same position since they topped their Nations League group. They were in League C. Obviously, their group wasn't as strong on paper, but it's still a remarkable achievement as they were undefeated and grabbed 5 wins along the way. Some of them were massive as well. They demolished teams. It's where we saw the likes of Kvicha really outshine. And shortly after that first half of the Nations League campaign, that's when Napoli decided to pick this guy up. At the moment, out of all the players currently there, he's Georgia's top goal scorer. And in the Serie A, he's getting outstanding numbers. 10 goals and 11 assists so far in 19 matches. He has by far been one of the best players in the league. Of course, there'll be arguments saying, oh, they just got one good player. That's not enough. But a lot of Georgia's other players are extremely underrated. And in fact, we've already seen them do damage to another Scandinavian country. They crushed Sweden's hopes and dreams to automatically qualify for the World Cup. Can they have that same effect against Norway? But of course, let's dive into these beasts next. Norway have an incredible squad, as we all know. Haaland and Odegaard are crushing it in the Premier League right now. There's also some youngsters coming in, such as Sjelderup, who Benfica just picked up. He was incredible prior to that in the Danish league. This attack looks dangerous, I'm telling you. And their defense, one of my favorites for now, Julian Riasson, has been fantastic for Union Berlin. Just earned himself a transfer to Dortmund. The problem with Norway is, in many qualifier campaigns or in any international competition at all, because we saw in the last Nations League campaign, they have a very strong start. And then they just seem to lose the grip. In the Nations League, they had first place on lockdown, but then they had to bottle it to Serbia at the end. In the World Cup qualifiers, yes, Haaland was injured for a bit, but we did see them lose that playoff spot at the very end. And in the last Euro qualifiers, they made it to the playoff spot, but they lost to Serbia in the first round. At the same time, though, will Norway be absolutely fired up right now? Because they're the only team in this group, apart from Cyprus, that don't have a playoff spot on lockdown. Spain, Scotland, and Georgia all do. I don't think Spain's going to take this easy, obviously, but maybe Scotland and Georgia will realize they can't afford a slipping and then just handle the situation in the playoffs. Obviously, that situation is nerve-wracking. No one wants to be there, but you never know. Norway might be more fueled up because they have more at stake. They really need to play their heart out in order to qualify for Euro 2024. And not to mention, they've only qualified for one Euro championship ever in 2000. Cyprus do have a couple of upcoming talents, obviously, but I don't have faith in them because, yeah, all these other opponents are looking way too dangerous. Best of luck to Cyprus. Always love to see the underdogs pull through, but I'm saying they finish last place. From second to fourth, though, it's such a gamble, man. But truly, and I really mean when I say this, it feels criminal to put any of those three teams in fourth place. I really do have a sneaky suspicion that Georgia will get third place. I just do. I do see either Norway or Scotland bottling this a little bit. Now, who am I going to put in that upset for fourth place? Guys, I really won't be surprised if I'm wrong on this, but I'm going to have to go with Scotland once again. I'm sorry, Scotland. I love you guys. Truly, what a nation. But someone's going to slip here. I do see an upset happening. I do see Georgia stirring this group more than people expect them to, and maybe Scotland just falls short. And for my argument for Norway, I see them being fired up this time around. I think they'll definitely have a strong start. It's just about them finishing the job at the end. Maybe once Scotland come across them a second time around, Scotland can be the ones to go ahead of them, and I'm totally wrong there. We'll see what happens. I see the point gap being extremely tight. All these fixtures going back and forth each way. I should probably move on because I feel like I'm blabbering too much about Group A because it's such an intense group, man. Best of luck to every single one of these teams. Now for Group B, you got two favorites here that are most likely going to be battling for that first place spot, Netherlands and France, along with two respectable underdogs right now, and I'll tell you why in a sec. Ireland and Greece. I think it's going to be a very interesting fight between the two to see who can potentially clinch third. Maybe we could see an upset for them to reach second, but I'm sorry, I kind of doubt that. And then you've got Gibraltar at the end. I'm sorry, Gibraltar, but I don't see you pulling through in this. Good luck on getting a point, maybe 3, but I'm saying they get last place. But going back to Ireland and Greece, if you've already saw my underdog video, you probably already know where I'm going with this. Greece seem to be onto something. They topped their Nations League group, so they already have that playoff spot secured. But they're still going to want to cause damage in this, of course. They were in a terrific run of form. Incredible keeper between the sticks, Vlacho Dimos on Benfica. Tsimikas is obviously one of the most well-known figures. Proper fullback he is. Alexandropoulos is definitely a promising center mid. Their captain and attacking midfielder Bakasetas has been in great form for them. And they've only lost one match in their Nations League campaign to Cyprus, but correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that was when they already secured first place, so they did play a decent amount of backups. So yeah, Greece with a fantastic Nations League campaign. Ireland not much so, but they were definitely in a more difficult group. Scotland and Ukraine were both in great run of forms, also just coming out of their World Cup qualifier playoffs. However, now seems like the perfect time to turn things around, as they seem to be going through a massive golden generational overhaul. I might be overhyping it, but there definitely is a lot of potential here. You've got two very impressive goalkeepers playing in the Premier League. Gavin Bazunu on Southampton, and Liverpool's backup Kelleher, who I think deserves more playing time, to be honest. Above either option, you've got a young, energetic, versatile backline as well, with the likes of Nathan Collins on Wolves and Daryl O'Shea, captain of West Brom. Them, mixed with all the veterans they already possess, could be dangerous. A few younger midfielders have already broken into the national team, such as Will Smallbone and Jason Malumbai, but there's still a younger generation of gems that still did not get the opportunity yet, but surely will for the national team. But the 18-year-old who has made it into the senior team is Brighton's forward Evan Ferguson, who despite not getting many minutes in the Premier League has still proven to be a complete center forward. In just 7 matches so far this season, he's gotten 3 goals and 2 assists. I think this is a massive year for him to develop, and we could see him shine for the national team as well. It might be a bit too early for them to really make an impact in a difficult Euro group, of course. And although I have a lot of faith in this generation to flourish in the future, I don't think it will be their year. I'm going to say Greece edged them for this year's fixtures and get third. Now, between Netherlands and France, very interesting matchup. These are some of the 2 most informed teams in Europe at the moment. I mean, Netherlands have been undefeated in so long until they had to face Argentina on penalties. When it comes to their overall record, it's really impressive what they have done. They went into the World Cup looking like the most confident European team, and going to the quarterfinals, getting knocked out to the champions on penalties is still an admirable run. France, on the other hand, obviously made it all the way to the World Cup final, after a decent amount of people, including me, counted them out because of the World Cup curse and their Nations League performance. It was really terrible, but it's silly to ever count out this side. They have some incredible talent, of course. Kylian Mbappe, one of the best forwards in the world, probably the most complete squad, to be honest. The World Cup has shown us that even when they struggle with injuries, they still have the depth and pull through. And we always see new talent emerging. This one's genuinely a flip of a coin. I believe I said Netherlands will get first last time around, but you know, France is definitely a steep task, and I think the motivation will just continue to be there, especially after just missing out on winning a 2nd World Cup in a row. So I'm gonna say France get first this time around, Netherlands second. At the end, it doesn't really matter, as both these teams would automatically qualify. regardless of the placement, as long as they both get first or second. Let's move on to Group C now. 2 European giants once again, Italy, England, joined with Ukraine, Macedonia, and Malta. Let's start off by saying Malta's getting 5th place. I'm sorry, Malta. Don't think I need to elaborate there. If I'm wrong, that's going to age terribly, but we've seen Macedonia have impressive moments last time around in the World Cup qualifiers. We've seen them beat Italy. They're the reason why we couldn't see Italy at the World Cup at the end of the day. Will we see some kind of magisterial moment like that once again? Maybe we can see Macedonia upset one of these giants, and I'm rooting for this side in this group. This is the side I want to see qualify, but I do think they're going to get 4th place. I think they really got an unfavorable draw here. All these other 3 teams, including Ukraine, are looking way too strong. Of course, they could surprise me, but Ukraine in qualifiers does not mess about. In their last 2 qualifiers for the World Cup and the last Euros, they went undefeated. Sure, they missed out on qualifying for the World Cup, but they were in a group with France. They were basically forced to the playoffs after accumulating too many draws. They beat Scotland, and then they failed to beat Wales after a Hennessy masterclass. And in the Euro qualifiers, they finished 1st in their group. One of their results was beating Serbia 5-0. Despite Ukraine going through a lot right now, I cannot see them slipping to Macedonia. But between Italy and England, it's a very tough one to call. England were obviously in pot 2 in this draw since they bottled their Nations League group. It was a very difficult group, to be fair, but it was a bit unexpected that they would lose to Hungary so heftily. Regardless, this side had a remarkable World Cup campaign. Yes, they got knocked out of the quarterfinals, but they weren't even that unconvincing against France, apart from Harry Kane's missed penalty. They played pretty well in that match, and before then they were getting some massive scorelines going their way. We're now also seeing a lot of attackers regain their form, such as Marcus Rashford, and we're already seeing Saka absolutely ball out. But according to recent history, Italy might be able to halt England once again, as yeah, these are the 2 sides that made it to the Euro 2020 final. The squad's changed a lot though since then. The back line's now looking the same without Chiellini, who has retired. That partnership between him and Bonucci was elite. But of course, you still got some incredible options like Bastoni on Inter Milan. Youngster on Atalanta, Giorgio Scalvini, seems to be the Chiellini regen, to be honest. This side was also in the same group as England in the Nations League, where they were able to get the last laugh against them. Recent history simply suggests that Italy should be the ones to top England. But really won't be surprised if history is broken here and England do the job themselves. Another toss-up, I believe I said Italy last time, but right now the England talent just seems to continuously shine. Maybe Southgate can somehow hold this side back, but I do think England will grab 1st place over Italy. Maybe Italy can get the best out of England when they face each other head-to-head, but I see England being more consistent against the likes of Ukraine and Macedonia, while Italy maybe could lose some points against them from time to time. Now moving on to Group D. Croatia, Wales, Armenia, Turkey, and Latvia. Croatia getting 3rd place recently in the World Cup. They love to cut everything close, even the qualifiers though. Something tells me they're not going to make this a clean sweep, even though this group looks extremely doable for them. I'm still going to say they get 1st place, but I'm not going to be surprised if halfway through the qualifiers, we're questioning everything. Clearly, everyone that's been saying this is an aging squad has just been insanely proven wrong after we've seen the likes of Gvardiol be one of the best players at the World Cup in the back line. And even then, Luka Modric is just absolutely balling out at his age, and he should still be playing in these matches. Apart from him, I do believe Croatia have one of the best midfield units. The problem still arises where we might not have a reliable striker, but regardless, the entire squad works wonderfully together and pulls through. We also saw it in the Nations League last year where they topped a difficult group. But for the rest of the 4 cases, it's actually more unpredictable than we think. Turkey are extremely inconsistent. We all know that. They just show up out of nowhere, but then tank it to teams they really should be beating. Wales are a bit unpredictable right now as they have just lost Gareth Bale at the helm. He has retired internationally. He didn't really have an impressive World Cup, I know, but prior to that, he really was the key difference on that team. Of course, they still have a lot of other youngsters to rely on, but regardless, they could be in a tricky situation. Armenia, to be honest, are really not in convincing form. They were in last place by far in their Nations League group. They had minor glimpses of hope in the World Cup qualifiers, but then ended up crashing right after that. However, now they have appointed Ukraine's former national team coach Petrokov, who could definitely be an upgrade as he's had quite the success in the past, such as winning the U20 World Cup. He's definitely a great fit for Armenia, but their quality may be in question as one of their best players, Mkhitaryan, retired from the national team. Maybe he'll make a return during these qualifiers, who knows. But they still have some other quality attacking players such as Edward Sperzian, who has gotten numbers in the Russian league this year. And Latvia might be one of the most interesting pot 5 teams. So although this group might look easy for Croatia, in terms of that pot 5 spot, and don't get me wrong, we should be beating Latvia. They could cause trouble. Of course, they did very well in their Nations League group, but their group was fairly easy. In the World Cup qualifiers, yeah, they lost most of their matches, but they kept everything pretty low scoring. Their worst defeat was 2-0, and they were in a group with Netherlands. They've really thrown the likes of Turkey and Norway off at moments as well. It's a side that can definitely take advantage of Turkey's inconsistency, Armenia's poor form at the moment, and an unpredictable Wales. But Croatia first, like I said. For second place, I'm going to say it's Turkey. I think despite those inconsistencies, they can pull off strong here. Despite now missing Yilmaz, he's retired internationally. You still got a lot of key players there, like Çalhanoğlu, Under, Soyuncu, and I'm very excited to see the youngster Arda Güler potentially shine. So far I'm changing a decent amount because last time I said Wales are going to get second place. Wales, I think, are just a bit too hard to call right now. Of course, they had a very disappointing World Cup campaign. I expected a lot more from this side. I wasn't saying that they were guaranteed to make it out, but they should have put off a better fight. They only scored 1 goal, and it was a penalty against the USA. A gift of a penalty as well. That group was filled with life. Obviously, England were favorites to top it, but USA, Iran, and Wales all should have had their glimpses of hope, but Wales had none. And I don't know how it's going to translate now to these Euro qualifiers. Of course, we've seen this side have miraculous runs in the past, but with a very different squad. We'll see what they're capable of. I'm going to say they get third place. Now, fourth and fifth, it's actually a toss-up. I think most people are going to say Armenia fourth, but like I said, Latvia is not a team to mess with out of those pot 5 teams. But I do think that fourth and fifth place can genuinely tie on points, and I'll say Armenia just happened to grab a bigger win, which has them getting fourth place instead over Latvia. So Armenia fourth, Latvia fifth. Those are my final answers for Group D. Now taking a look at Group E with Poland, Czech Republic, Albania, Faroe Islands, and Moldova. Poland and Czech Republic look like the favorites here, but still a group of life for Albania where they can prove themselves. I am still a bit worried about this national team. They really bottled their Nations League group. After Russia got banned as well, they had the perfect opportunity to prove themselves and they blew it. Thankfully, they got a new manager, the Brazilian Silvino, who could be promising, but definitely not the most guaranteed choice of somebody who's going to blow it out the park for Albania. He managed Corinthians in the past, I believe, and I think fans had mixed feelings about him. Another reason why I'm a little bit worried for Albania is because Broja is going to be injured for a decent amount of time. Chelsea striker. Still, though, there's some other exciting youngsters like Christian Aslani on Inter Milan, the center defensive mid, Marash Kumbula on Roma, along with the experienced players that we all know like Hisai on Lazio. Albania is definitely going to be a mystery bag, but in terms of appointing new managers, Albania is not the only side to do so in this group. Poland have as well. They appointed the long-term Portugal manager Fernando Santos, who I used to criticize a lot. He won the Euros with Portugal, yes, but once Portugal had a more complete, fearless squad, somehow he seemed to lack with the amazing talent they had. But back when Portugal looked a bit weaker, he did wonders for them. Maybe Poland is the perfect fit for a manager like him. Now, that's not me saying Poland are a weak side, of course. They have incredible world-class players. However, I still wouldn't say they are stacked in every single position, which was the same situation Portugal were somewhat back in 2016 when he brought them to glory. Czechia, of course, it's really hard to sleep on this side. They had a fantastic Euro run last time around. Patrick Schick being one of the most exciting strikers of the tournament. West Ham duo Souček and Soufal haven't, I guess, been the most exhilarating compared to before, as West Ham have not been looking too good. But of course, they still have what it takes to turn up for the national team. I mean, this side were ones to make it to the playoffs for the World Cup qualifiers. They just blew it in the first round against Sweden. I think if Albania were to squeeze through to that second place spot, it would be over a slipping Czech Republic. But if I'm going to make an overall prediction, I still think Czech Republic will be the ones to grab second. Poland first, even with Santos being a bit iffy, I think he will fit in with this side very well, actually. I know I criticized him a lot in the past, but like I said, I think with less pressure, he will be able to do the job with Polska. Poland first, Czech Republic second, Albania third, Faroe Islands, very exciting side, but they're going to get fourth, and Moldova fifth. Faroe Islands have put some fantastic displays. They could even upset the likes of Albania. I mean, we've seen them beat Turkey not too long ago, but I'm going to stick with my order. Now let's move on to Group F with Belgium, Austria, Sweden, Azerbaijan, and Estonia. Belgium, obviously the biggest talking point is the golden generation disintegrating. Roberto Martinez has also left the managerial role. He went straight to Portugal, so in comes Tedesco, who has previously managed the likes of RB Leipzig, Spartak Moscow, and Schalke. I think Belgium would have been in a lot more trouble if they were in a more difficult group, but of course they're still a pot 1 nation and they got a favorable draw on their hands. Of course, they shouldn't underestimate Austria or Sweden, but with the legs of Kevin De Bruyne in the midfield, a Romelu Lukaku, who I know very much struggled against Croatia, still loves to bang in goals in the qualifiers. I am worried about their defensive situation for sure, and the dressing room was left on a sour note by the end of the World Cup. Both Courtois between the sticks, I still think this side have what it takes to get first place. Qualifiers never really seem to be a problem for them. I know this squad is very much different compared to even 2 years ago in terms of their peak golden generation. But I still think they have what it takes. I think the biggest question for this group is who's going to get second place, Austria or Sweden. Neither of these teams have a playoff spot on the cards, as Austria finished last in their Nations League group, a difficult one to be fair, where they still got some pretty interesting results like beating Croatia 3-0 at the beginning. Sweden also fell through in their Nations League group. They were in a difficult group as well. Well, the most difficult in League B. But still, getting relegated in League B is not a good look. With the quality they have, they shouldn't be falling off this hard after failing to qualify for the World Cup. It's like that loss to Georgia just changed everything for them. There's still so much quality on this side for me to assume that they can't bounce back from their losses recently. Alexander Isak on Newcastle, Kulusevski, Emil Forsberg. Alinga slightly disappeared from the scene, but he's still just 19 years old. Definitely can make his mark once again. Meanwhile, Austria have a lot of talent you shouldn't mess with. Sabitzer, Alaba, youngster Seywald, Schlager, Adamu. The list goes on for both of these teams, and I'm torn about it, but Ralf Rangnick seems to be a pretty solid manager for Austria. I hate to do Sweden dirty, and I won't be surprised if they prove me wrong, but I'm going to have to stick with this order, where Austria gets second, Sweden third, Azerbaijan fourth, and Estonia fifth. You could see Azerbaijan surprise themselves. They actually have a decent striker partnership at the moment with 2 players on Karabakh, but I think this group might be a bit too much to handle. Of course, we've seen Estonia have glorious runs in qualifiers about a decade ago, but I don't think they have the same type of quality this time around to do so. Of course, they've been in solid form, but their Nations League group was definitely one of the easiest ever. Now for Group G. Hungary, Serbia, Montenegro, Bulgaria, and Lithuania. 2 favorites here without a doubt, Hungary and Serbia. Serbia had a disappointing World Cup after I heavily hyped them up. They still have a very solid side, and they like to do it in the qualifiers, at least for the World Cup. They've never qualified for the Euros, but this is their perfect opportunity to do so, as they definitely look like favorites on paper in this group. With that being said though, Hungary can definitely halt their parade. They arguably have a more structured defense. They still have a lot of talented players that pull through. Lots of underrated gems in there. We've nearly seen them top the group of death in the Nations League in League A, just falling short to Italy. So it's a toss-up between them. But let's go through the underdogs first. Unfortunately, I don't think Lithuania are convincing enough to pull through, so I'm putting them at 5th place. And I think it's going to be a bit of an interesting fight between Bulgaria and Montenegro, as neither of these sides are really convincing me at the moment either. One of Montenegro's best players throughout time, Savic, has not been looking at his best selves. He's picked up a lot of red cards this season. He's definitely slowed down a tad bit. A lot of their veterans even. Jovetic has been injured for a while. The one who can still pull through, of course, is Marusic on Lazio. But even with that, who knows? Because with a lot of these quote-unquote lower league players, they pulled through for the national team. Mugosha, for example, plays in Japan, and he was the top goal scorer for Montenegro last year with 4 goals. And Bulgaria have a couple promising youngsters such as Nikola Iliev on Inter Milan's youth system. Their captain on Ludogorets, Despodov, seems to be a pretty promising threat, along with Dimo Krastev on Fiorentina, Ilya Gruev on Werder Bremen. Also, their current manager was Serbia's former manager at the 2018 World Cup, Kristajic. So who knows, maybe he'll impose some kind of tactical threat against his nation. I hate to do Montenegro dirty, please prove me wrong, but I'm saying they get 4th, Bulgaria 3rd. For that top 2, last time I did say Serbia's topping this group, but with not much confidence. It genuinely is a toss-up. The thing about Hungary is they love to be in some really solid form and then just randomly slip to an unexpected team. Last time they couldn't beat Albania. Regardless, Marco Rossi seemed to get the best out of this side once again. Milos Kerkez is a delight to watch. The 19-year-old left back has been pulling through for AZ Alkmaar. Salai in the attack made quite the impact against the likes of England. Szoboszlai, if he avoids injury, will be a huge threat. And when you contrast it to Serbia, I've been over their squad so many times. Their defense seems to be the biggest problem. Even though Pavlovic looks to be promising, he still has some random slip-ups, and he can't do it all by himself, of course. It's a coin toss like most of this 1st and 2nd place positioning. I'm going to go still for Serbia grabbing 1st. I know many people are going to disagree with me on that now because I hyped them up last time and they didn't pull through. And I just made a whole video essay about them talking about how terrible their Euro qualifier campaigns have been. And I've said it before, it could age terribly, but this year is different. This group's a lot easier from their other Euro qualifier groups. Mitrovic and Vlahovic still look like a deadly duo up top, and their questionable defense isn't going to be coming up against the likes of Switzerland, Brazil, Cameroon. I was surprised they conceded 3 goals, but still, I'm edging it towards Serbia. I'm going to back them up. Call me biased, I don't care. But I really think it's a toss-up, and I won't be surprised if Hungary prove me wrong. Let's move on to Group H now with Denmark, Finland, Slovenia, Kazakhstan, Northern Ireland, and San Marino. Despite Denmark having a terrible World Cup campaign themselves, just like Serbia, bottom of their group, terrible fashion, just 1 point. So many people were banking on this side to have a solid run in the tournament as well. So it's a bit of a shame. But still, in the last qualifier run, they grabbed first place by quite a margin, nearly doing it undefeated. I don't know if they can go that steep again, but I think they have the quality to still get first place. The rest I truly think is up for grabs. So much life in this group, apart from San Marino. I'm saying they're guaranteed 6th place. This side is still yet to win a proper competitive match, and this group looks too tough, with even the underdogs like Kazakhstan looking to be in confident form. Finland, apart from Denmark, are the only nation in this group to have qualified for Euro 2020. But that's the only European championship they've ever qualified for in their history. Of course, you still got some big talking points in this squad. Timo Pukki, the reliable striker for this country. Marcus Forss grabbing a decent amount of goals in the championship. What worries me though is the back line seem to be going through a rebuild. However, with that being said, most people are probably banking on them to qualify, but I'm probably going to go for a bit of an outlier, and I did this in my last prediction video. I'm banking on Slovenia to get 2nd place. Slovenia finished 3rd in their Nations League group, and they really had a convincing ending, where we saw the likes of Benjamin Šeško light up. He's been doing pretty well for himself at Salzburg as well. Of course, they have one of the best goalkeeper options, Jan Oblak. Peter Stojanovic as well, pretty underrated fullback. Huge toss-up, but I'm saying Slovenia gets 2nd, Finland get 3rd. But even with that being said, hard to rule off these other two teams I haven't ranked yet. Kazakhstan going in with confident form. They topped their Nations League group. They beat Slovakia twice head-to-head. They could really impose some problems. But with that being said, in their last qualified campaign for the World Cup, they did get results like losing to France 8-0. So it's easy to make arguments for this side or against them. I'd love to see this side have another outrageous story, but this group's going to be more high in demand. Maybe they can get some impressive results. I'm saying they get 4th. I think the confidence will shine at moments, but then they'll randomly slip. And Northern Ireland 5th, this side made it to the playoffs last time in the Euro qualifiers. Even though they beat Bosnia, they couldn't finish the job in the next round. They had an extremely disappointing run in the Nations League. They're not looking to be in good form. Northern Ireland got somewhat of a favorable draw considering they were seeded so low, and they could prove me wrong here. I mean, this side surprised at moments in the World Cup qualifiers. They started Italy's halt to qualifying for the World Cup. Group filled with life, group filled with possibility, but this is my order. Let me know what you would change. Now for Group I, another group of life here. In fact, I think even more life than the previous one. Switzerland, definitely the giants in this group. But for any of these other teams, I'm specifically looking at 3 of them, but I think any of them have a solid shout to prove themselves. Israel have been in really solid form. That's why they were the pot 2 candidate of this group. Romania, not so much. They slipped at the end in their World Cup qualifiers, and then they did really bad in the Nations League. Kosovo, very back and forth with form. Some very impressive scorelines going their way. And the last Euro qualifiers, they were very impressive despite being in a tough group. All those 3 nations love to play with pride and confidence, and it can definitely take them far. Belarus and Andorra, I'm not too sold on, to be honest, so they're the bottom 2 for me. I'll put Andorra at 6th and Belarus at 5th. And of course, I'll put Switzerland at 1st. I think that goes without saying. Maybe they'll slip, but I think it's pretty unlikely. Between those 3 teams, though, it's really tough to call. Israel and Kosovo looking to qualify for their first ever European Championship. Kosovo with a lot of exciting players, such as Muric in between the sticks, who has been doing very well in the championship for Burnley. Muriqi, who's grabbed a solid amount of goals so far in La Liga. Rahmani, who's been a genuine component for Napoli in the back line. Rashica still pulling his worth. Israel's squad, of course, is no joke either. In fact, they have some electric attackers like Fulham super sub Monar Solomon, who has been an absolute difference maker, securing his club some massive wins. Another player to watch out for is Lyle Abado, who is a ridiculous winger on Celtic. I think Kosovo can definitely have some outrageous scorelines going their way, actually, in this qualifier run. But can they keep it up throughout the entire longevity of the year? I see this group being a mess, down to the wire. I went with Israel getting 2nd last time, but I will say Kosovo make history, qualify for their first ever Euros, and get 2nd place. Israel 3rd and Romania 4th. I've got a lot of uncertainty in this prediction video, but that's why I love the qualifiers so much. And the final group, we're looking at Group J with Portugal, Bosnia, Iceland, Luxembourg, Slovakia, and Liechtenstein. Sorry. Portugal are definitely grabbing first. It would be crazy if they don't. The quality is absolutely shining, even with Ronaldo maybe not being a key starter as he used to be. They still got so many options up there. This squad is definitely looking more potent in every position compared to before. And I mentioned this already, Roberto Martinez has taken charge for this national team after leaving Belgium. To be honest, and I always seem to shit on Portugal's managers, but I don't think he's the right man for the job. I mean, we've seen him not do it with Belgium's golden generation. What makes us think he can do it with Portugal? For the actual tournament, of course, he's definitely got the qualifiers in the bag. He always has, and this is a very doable group. No offense to these other teams. Easy first place for Portugal. Apart from saying Liechtenstein are definite 6th, the rest is tricky. You've got Bosnia, who won their Nations League group. Iceland, who drew every single Nations League match, but didn't lose or win any. Luxembourg catching a few surprises, but still not being overall consistent enough. They still have a decent amount of youngsters, though, that can shine in this. And Slovakia, who have a lot of exciting components to this squad. They should be doing a lot better than they are. They can still turn things around, of course. They have so much quality. But for some reason, when this squad unites, they don't pull through to their maximum potential. They've got the likes of Skriniar, who's a fantastic defender. Lobotka, who's been killing it for Napoli this season. Bosnia are going to be a mystery bag as well, as although they did top their Nations League group, they still decided to sack their manager Ivalo Petev straight after. They appointed Hadzibegic, who did manage Bosnia a very long time ago, but only for 7 matches. Recently, he also managed Montenegro as well. My Bosnia friends, please let me know if there's something behind the scenes that I'm missing. But I think it was a bit uncalled for to sack Ivalo Petev. From what I understood, the board still expected more from him despite topping the group. Dzeko, despite his age, we're still seeing him absolutely crush it in the center forward role. Ahmed Hodzic, a very exciting defender, has been terrific for Sheffield United. Kolasinac, despite getting some negative media light, I think he's still a very solid fullback and has been doing the job well for Marseille. One worry I have, although this player is past his prime, he's still definitely one of their most notable ones. Miralem Pjanic is injured, so he might miss majority of the qualifier campaign. The midfield might not be as potent, but I still have faith that this defense can pull through. I also forgot to mention Amar Dedic has been a fantastic fullback for Salzburg. I think despite this injury crisis that seems major on the surface, Bosnia can work around it. I'm not too sure about the manager, obviously, but I'm saying they can still grab 2nd place. Iceland obviously had some remarkable campaigns in the past in the Euros, but obviously this is a very different squad, who truly don't look that electric, but they still are holding off games in a very narrow fashion. I banked on Luxembourg doing some bits in the last World Cup qualifiers, and I looked like a genius back then after they beat Ireland, but of course they faded away later, which could easily happen again. I'm so tempted to put this country at 3rd. I really wouldn't rule them out. I know they don't look like favorites at all. More people are very familiar with Iceland and Slovakia's history, but Luxembourg is a decent shout. I don't see Luxembourg going that low, but also not that high, so I'll say they get 4th. But which team's going to get 3rd? Iceland or Slovakia? It feels like a huge insult to put either of these teams at 5th place. Do I see Slovakia making a comeback with the quality they have? Or will Iceland's unity once again shock the world? I'm going to say we see some slight improvements for Slovakia. A rebuild in identity. It will be a rocky road, but they get 3rd place. Can't wait to see how terribly all of this ages, but as always, let me know where I messed up in the comments below. Thank you all for making it all the way to the end. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. And of course, I will be doing match day predictions for this. But yeah, thank you all for sticking through this long prediction video. Love you all. Take care. La cu noci.